Good morning, honors government. How are you guys today? Hey, sorry about the video. You guys asked, most of you wanted me to do this, what I'm doing here in front of the computer in the notes. But as you saw in my post, I recorded what I thought was a pretty good lecture without volume. So I think I'm back doing this right. I must have hit the wrong button somewhere along the line. Okay, so yeah, that last lecture I had in that, you can tell that class was kind of a pain in the neck. But anyhow, it got up to eminent domain, and I had discussed, was going to talk about the Kelo decision. So basically, the Kelo decision allowed for a situation where you have, if a city or a community feels like they can gain economic benefits, economic growth for the whole community, they can take your property or make you sell it. Okay. Let's see. Draw a chart here. I'm starting over. Hey, good morning, guys. Sorry about last lecture. I had done a good one. I'm back doing these on the computer now, and we're almost actually through with these notes here, okay, guys? So just a couple more things to talk about, and then we're going to move on to how a bill becomes a law, which is in your book. So you're going to need that today. I'll start on that. It's actually 13 steps, and so it'll take a while to go through that. I won't do it all today. But talking about the Kelo decision, okay, and let's say you were at the beach, okay, you're hanging out at the beach, all right, you're in West Palm Beach, and you're looking at these big buildings on the beach. They're called condominiums, right? And each one of these condominiums is going to have, this one's going to have 125 condos in it. It's a large structure. Same here, 125. Okay. Now you look at this. This is Grandpa's little shack, cinder block house. It's a beach house. You guys have been going there every summer since you were kids. And West Palm Beach says, you know, there's only one property taxpayer here. Okay, we have 125 property taxpayers here. If we can force this guy to sell his house, his property, we can build a nice big condo there and create a condo with 150 units in it. So instead of one property taxpayer, we can create 149 more. And guys, these are expensive condominiums, so they're going to be paying a lot in property taxes. And guess what? We can build that new high school that we want for our kids. This is great for the whole community. We're going to force this guy to sell his property. Now, some of you guys may think that's okay. The Kelo decision by the Supreme Court, which was a 5-4 decision, which I thought was horrible, allows the government to do that. Okay, so typically it's for roads, railroads. That's what we've kind of always known it, eminent domain as. But it's bigger than that now. Okay, so you can look up some stories on that. Kelo was a little homeowner in Connecticut, New London, Connecticut. Her house was near the water. She had a little bed and breakfast, little pink house, and they forced her to sell it. She sued, went all the way to Supreme Court, and obviously she lost. Okay, so that is eminent domain. Okay, so unique powers that each has, okay, include the House may introduce bills that raise government revenue. So anytime they're going to tax you or spend your money, it's got to start where? In the House, okay? The House elects the president if there's no majority in the Electoral College, okay? We've kind of talked about this before, I believe. Okay, so you guys know there's 538 electors, right? If you got a tie, 269 to 269, okay, the House of Representatives would get to choose. If you had a strong third-party candidate, okay, and this guy got 200. You had one guy get 69. Okay, you've got a split between three. The House is going to do this. Now, each state gets one vote. So Kansas has 4 electors. 3 of the 4, not electors, representatives. 3 of the 4, okay, are Republicans. Okay, so which way is Kansas going to vote? Okay, California has 55 members of the House, but 40 of them are Democrats. Which way is California going to go? So whichever candidate is the first to get to 26 states, okay, 26 of 50, they're going to be elected president. That's happened twice. That happened, Thomas Jefferson was elected in 1802, and John Quincy Adams in 1824, okay? The Senate, not the House, must approve treaties. Okay, only the Senate can approve treaties, so you go back to things like the League of Nations. Back after World War I, Senate said no. At the end of World War II, the Senate agreed to join the United Nations, and then later, 1948, NATO. Okay, so if the president is going to do a new trade agreement with China or Mexico and Canada, that's going to eventually have to be approved by the Senate. Okay, the Senate approves presidential nominations, ambassadors, judges, cabinet members. Okay, this is an important role. This role is called senatorial courtesy and advise and consent. So in the Constitution, it says the Senate can advise and consent to presidential nominations. Okay, usually, like if we're talking about the president wants somebody to be his secretary of housing and urban development. Usually the Senate, even if it's controlled by the Democrats, they're going to let him pick his team, okay? When it comes to federal judges, Supreme Court justices, this fight gets very ugly, okay? So there have been some nominations like Judge Robert Bork, who I believe somebody read that book about Robert Bork for your book review, okay? But anyhow, he was not nominated. Oh, Justice Kavanaugh, who was most recently added to the court. That was an ugly, ugly fight, okay? And so you can see, I mean, they drugged this guy through the mud, pulling up stuff from high school. It's kind of crazy. So you see that when it comes to these judges, because they get to serve for how long? For life. And really, these federal judges can change culture, especially the Supreme Court, okay? Ambassadors, they kind of let you have who you want there, that sort of thing, okay? All right, non-legislative powers that Congress has, okay? We know their job is to make laws, okay, and oversee the executive branch, okay? That's called congressional oversight. We've talked about that. But they also have the power to not amend the Constitution, but propose constitutional amendments, okay? Amendments are not laws, so this is a non-legislative power. They have the power to impeach. We saw that, okay, in the House. They impeach. The Senate has the trial, okay? So there, again, two different powers that the two bodies have. And then this is the investigatory power or oversight, congressional oversight. So who's watching? The NSA is watching us. Who's watching the NSA? So there are committees within the House and Senate that oversee the activities of the IRS, the CIA, okay, the NSA. There are committees that oversee the Agriculture Department in Congress, or excuse me, in the executive branch. Somebody in the Congress is always watching what the executive branch is doing to try and keep them honest, okay? So quick story on that. The IRS, it chooses people randomly to do audits. And if you get chosen, guys, it's not a fun thing, okay? Been there, done that by the state of Florida. But anyhow, basically, excuse me, the IRS was kind of treating people like they were guilty, and you had to prove yourself innocent. And so constituents, people that were being audited, told their members of Congress, said, the IRS is abusing me. They're treating me like I did something wrong when I haven't done anything wrong. And so Congress, that committee hauled those IRS people in front of Congress and grilled them about, hey, why are you treating people like this? You are innocent until proven guilty in this country. You need to change the way you do your audits. And so they did. Okay, so that's just one good example of investigatory power. Obviously, guys, the Democrats have been looking into Trump since even before he was elected. Okay, so this is something that they do. Okay, it's part of Congress's role. All right, so we go to how a bill becomes a law, and we go to the book. I don't think I have these in here, so I'm going to pause this for a second and pull that up. Okay, guys, so this is stuff from your book. All right, Article 1, Section 8, powers to introduce, pass laws affecting the federal court system, print, regulate, collect taxes. And that was one of the things I spent that time on taxes in the last lecture, just so people know. Okay, we talked about patent law and copyright law and so forth. Okay, they can also govern the nation's capital if need be. And there is a mayor of Washington, D.C. That is one of their powers. Not sure if I told you the story about Marion Barry. If I haven't, the mayor of D.C., I can circle back to that if somebody makes a comment in their next assignment about it. I'll tell you that story at some point, okay? So we're going to start on how a bill becomes a law or not, okay? So you guys have all seen Schoolhouse Rock, I'm Just a Bill, okay? You can put that in YouTube and watch that. It's it's about 3 minutes long, but it's really basic. This is going to go into quite a bit more detail than that little cartoon, okay? So let's start at the top. Okay, guys, so anyone can write a law. I can write a law. We can write a law. We can do it together, but only members of Congress, okay, can introduce a bill for consideration, okay? The person that introduces the bill is typically known as the bill's sponsor, okay? You can have one sponsor of a bill. You can have two. You could have, 200 sponsors of the bill in the House of Representatives, okay? Those would be like co-sponsors, okay? So sometimes you might remember some of the names we've heard in the past, like in history, about different laws like the Glass-Steagall Act, that sort of thing. Those are named after the sponsors of the bill in Congress, okay? So they consider four types of different types of legislation, okay? So you have bills, which would be a law that would apply to the whole nation. Now, these are kind of other things that the Congress does. These aren't necessarily laws, but you have simple resolutions, not a law, just an opinion or adoption of a new procedure. Okay, that could be a new procedure in Congress, a new procedure with what the government is going to be doing, that sort of thing. Concurrent resolutions, not a law, simple resolution that both houses agree on. And then joint resolution, laws that deal with unusual or temporary matters, amendments or amending a bill that's already passed. So let's say a bill passes through Congress and oh crap, we forgot to take that out. We're going to pass a joint resolution to remove that from the bill before we send it to the president. Okay. So these are, simple things. Other ideas that you see with these resolutions could be what is today? Today is April 7th. We are going to pass a joint resolution or concurrent resolution citing April 7th as the day Corona died. Okay. Let's hope so, right? So, or National Pancake Day or something like that, okay? We have these days, if you ever listen to the radio, sometimes they'll say, okay, it's National, Mexican Food Day, something like that, okay? So that is the introduction, okay? These bills will be given a number. So you get the first reading, it's assigned a number. So it'll be called House Resolution 5150. Or something like that. They'll be given a Senate resolution, 2525. All right. And now that it's got a number, it's officially in the congressional record. So every bill that's been introduced goes into the congressional record. Okay. Then we go to step number 2, which is committee consideration. With this, guys, the leadership is going to be greatly important here, okay? All bills or resolutions are referred to one or more House or Senate committee, okay? In your book, you have all the committees, okay? Let's see here. I've got a picture of that in my other notes. Let me show you that. Oh, where are you at? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so you guys can see this here. These are the House committees. There's 19 in the House, 17 in the Senate. These are standing committees. They're permanent. We've talked about that before, okay? So every bill is going to be sent to at least one of these committees, okay, in the House. Now, most bills start in the House. Why? Because they spend money, all right? All right, so I'm going to sink that down. All right, so, okay, so they're referred to one or more House committee, okay, assigned by the majority leader, okay? So this is going to be in the House of Representatives, it's going to be the Speaker. So Nancy Pelosi, any bill that's introduced, she gets to decide which committee it goes to. This will decide the life or death of a bill a lot of times, okay? In the Senate, it's going to be Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, that gets to assign this bill, okay? So how does this determine the life? Okay, so let me just give you an example. Some of you guys have been to Colorado. You know about the pine beetle that's been killing thousands and thousands of trees in Colorado. And let's say they come up with an insecticide to kill this beetle, but it does have some damaging effects to the environment because it's a pesticide, okay? So what do you use it or not? You can save the trees, but you know, this stuff may get down into, you know, and underground and be bad for the soil, maybe for some of the animals, that sort of thing. So what do? So if Nancy Pelosi doesn't like this bill, she could send it to a committee where she knows the chairman of that committee is an environmentalist, where if she liked the bill, she could send it to somebody that was more of a person that, you know, was more into agriculture and, you know, loves trees. Okay, I don't know. So she can send it to a chair of a committee that is going to decide the fate of this bill, because the chair of each committee controls the calendar of each committee. Okay, and that's what I get into down here, is the chair of that committee is either going to put it on the calendar to be studied, or he's going to put it over here on his desk and it's just going to sit there. That's called a pigeonhole. Okay, this is where most bills die. They're sent to a committee and they're never brought up. Okay, they just die. Okay, sits on the committee's chair's desk, never looked at. Okay, so out of every 2 years, which is a Congress, there's over 10,000 bills introduced. So, guys, most of these never see the light of day because they go to the committee and the chair doesn't like it, it dies. Okay, so the full body can force a bill out of committee after 30 days with a discharge position. That rarely happens. Okay, so let's say Nancy Pelosi sends a bill to the committee. The committee chair likes it. They bring it up, put it on the calendar, and they're going to review it. Okay, and that takes us to step number 4. So the committee sends some bills down to subcommittee. Okay, and we've talked about subcommittees. These are more specialized, and they'll do what are called public hearings. Okay, just about anyone can present at these hearings. You can have, government employees that understand these issues that are being talked about. Let's go back to the pine beetle. You could have, somebody from the Department of Forestry come in and talk about the devastation of the pine beetle. Then you could have somebody that disagreed with using this insecticide come in and talk about the impact on the environment using this pesticide. And so you're going to have people come in and testify in favor or against, okay? Like I said here, just about anybody can be called. Government officials, industry experts, the public, anyone with an interest in the bill can give testimony either in person or in writing. Notice of these hearings, as well as instructions presenting testimony, is officially published in the Federal Registrar. Okay, I'm going to speak a little bit more about these hearing rooms, or these hearings. Okay, guys, so I pulled up these pictures here for you. These hearings, these are just from my regular class notes. You can see different folks. Now, sometimes they'll bring celebrities or famous people. Okay, so pictured here, you got Bill Gates. This is Mark McGwire. Okay, Mark McGwire is a famous baseball player. If you didn't know him, he's on this Wheaties box. He hit 70 home runs here in 1998, breaking the major league record. Okay, steroids in baseball. Mark McGwire testified in front of Congress. In fact, he lied. This is John Kerry. We've talked about John Kerry before. This is him giving testimony in a hearing about the Vietnam War after he got back. Remember 3 Purple Hearts? Okay. And this is Richard Gere, famous actor. He's an activist like some of the other Hollywood actors. And they come in and testify on these causes that they support or that they oppose. This is Lars Ulrich, the drummer for Metallica. Okay, so when these type of people show up, so does the media. Okay, so the media is going to really bring attention to this bill because they're going to show up and the cameras are going to be there. Okay, now this is what a committee hearing room looks like. Okay, this is just a pain. Okay, so you can see this is in the House. So down here, guys, these are the people testifying, sitting behind tables. The Democrats have more seats than the Republicans because every committee, remember, they're going to have more in the House. In the Senate, the Republicans are going to have more seats. Okay, so you got the chairman there in the middle. Okay, and they're going to be asking these folks questions. They're going to give testimony, give an opening statement, and then they can ask them questions. Okay, so that's what hearings rooms look like. It's an important part of the process. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is just when we talk about ordinary citizens can testify. Some of you may have heard of something called Megan's Law. Now, guys, Megan's Law is the story of a young girl named Megan. Megan and her family felt that they lived in a safe neighborhood where they could let their kids go out and play and they would be safe. But Megan and her family didn't know is that a convicted child sex offender had moved into their neighborhood. Unaware, Megan became his next victim. It's a really sad story with somewhat of a good ending. So Megan's mother contacted a member of Congress and said, you know, there ought to be a law that people should know when these people get out of jail, whether they're living in their neighborhood or not. And as she gave testimony in a hearing before Congress about what happened to her daughter, Megan, there was not a dry eye in the room, guys. She had a huge impact, and Congress passed Megan's Law, which basically says convicted sex offenders have to register with the communities that they live in. And so you guys might know there's an app for your phone, or you can look it up on the internet and see where these people live near you. And it's kind of frightening, guys. There are a lot of convicted sex offenders living in and around Wichita. Okay, so that's just, you know, the story of how one person in a hearing can have an impact on, you know, law. And so that law has been around for over, I think, 20 years now. All right, so you have the hearings, okay? Now, these hearings can be done in the subcommittee or in the full committee or both, okay? So the next step, which is probably one of the most important steps right here, is markup. Think of Mr. Barber or Mrs. Cass. marking up one of your English papers, okay? They decide, this is where they do the genuine debate, guys. This is where they go the exact phrasing. So you got lawyers in the room, and they're going line by line, everything that is going to be in the bill. How much is this going to cost? Are there going to be new taxes? What's the impact on existing laws that this will have? There's a lot that goes into this, okay? This process is called markup, all right? So we go through this. So this markup can take place both in the subcommittee or in the full committee, okay, or both, okay? If the subcommittee votes not to report the bill back to the full committee, it dies, okay? So they take it down to the subcommittees, they look at this, they study it, and say, this isn't a good idea. It dies, okay? If they do report it back to the full committee will review the deliberations and recommendations of the subcommittee. Now the committee can conduct further review, hold more hearings, or simply vote on it. When they vote, they're going to be sending this to the full House or the full Senate, okay? So they're going to want to give them a heads up, okay? So we're going to pass this with a positive recommendation, okay, reporting the bill to the full body. We like this law or this bill that we want to become a law. So we're sending it out with a positive recommendation. We want you guys to take a good look at it, okay? Pass it with no recommendation. You know, this could be a good idea. We want the whole body to see it and tell us what they think, okay? They can pass it with an unfavorable recommendation. This is pretty rare. Why would they do that? This is something that they say, well, maybe the country really needs this, but we don't know if this is a good idea, okay? Or they can vote it down, okay, in the full committee, all right? So, guys, we're getting to about 28 minutes here, 27 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. Let me just keep going. This one more, okay? Sorry. Okay, so if they vote it out of committee, they're going to publish what's called a report. This is huge, okay? Look, some of these bills are hundreds of pages long. Some of them are thousands of pages long. Members don't have time to read all those, okay? Now, they have staff that can read them and report back to the members, but so they're going to do a summary. That's what the report is. It's a summary of the bill. What's the purpose? Impact on existing laws. How much is it going to cost? Okay. What new taxes or tax increases are required? This contains the transcripts from the hearings of the bill as opinions of the committee for and against the bill. Okay. Key right here. This is what most members of Congress decide their vote on, is this report. Not reading the full bill, but reading the report, okay? So later on, guys, there's going to be an opportunity for members of the House and Senate on the floor of the House or Senate to debate this, okay? Generally, that's hot air, okay? Because most members are going to make up their mind based on this, not on, you know, a bunch of senators or House members from different parts of the country in opposition or in favor of it, okay? The other factor here is going to be what the leadership want. What does Nancy want? What does Mitch want? Okay? That's going to be key as well as to how these members vote. Okay, so the report is key. All right, we're going to move to the floor of the House and the Senate tomorrow. Hope you guys are well. I'm not going to do any questions on this one either, but I'll have you guys post some questions after tomorrow's lecture. And you guys have a great day. Peace.